Let's talk about the biggest, boldest art heist in history. This is a story about priceless treasures, a couple of thieves dressed up like cops, and a mystery that has completely stumped the FBI for more than 30 years. It's an absolutely wild ride.
To really get this story, you have to start right here, with what's missing. If you walk into Boston's Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum today, you'll see these empty frames just hanging on the walls. They're like these ghostly reminders of this huge cultural wound that opened up one cold March night back in 1990.
So what are we talking about in terms of value? Well, the FBI puts the number for the 13 stolen pieces at over $500 million. That makes it the single largest property crime in the history of the United States. But honestly, their real value? It's completely immeasurable.
And that brings us to the question that just hangs over this entire mystery. How on earth did a handful of absolute masterpieces, including a super rare Vermeer and Rembrandt's only seascape, just vanish from a major museum in only 81 minutes without leaving a single clue behind?
Okay, so let's rewind. Let's go back to where it all started. March 18th, 1990. The city of Boston is kind of sleeping off its big St. Patrick's Day parties. The museum is dark and quiet, but that silence? It's about to be shattered.
At 1:24 in the morning, two guys dressed as cops trick a young guard into buzzing them in. A few minutes later, both guards are tied up and gagged in the basement. And just like that, the thieves have the entire place to themselves. For the next 81 minutes, they just stroll through the galleries, totally calm. At 2:45 a.m., they walk right back out the way they came in, taking the security tapes and $500 million in art with them. And then, poof, they just vanished.
Okay, now this is where things get really weird. It's the huge contradiction in how they did things. Getting in was brilliant, a perfect con. They controlled the guards, no problem. But then they acted like total amateurs, literally slicing priceless paintings right out of their frames. This clash of styles is what still baffles investigators. I mean, did a criminal mastermind plan the perfect break-in only to hire two guys who had no idea what they were doing? This bizarre mix of pro and amateur has been one of the biggest puzzles of the whole case.
So what exactly did they walk out with during those 81 minutes? Let's take a look at the stolen treasures themselves. We're talking about a collection so important that their absence is just this gaping wound in art history.
Their haul was just staggering. They took Vermeer's The Concert, one of the most valuable stolen paintings in the world. They took Rembrandt's The Storm on the Sea of Galilee, his only seascape, plus masterpieces by Manet and Degas. It's a collection that seriously represents the absolute peak of what humans are capable of creating.
And this, right here, perfectly illustrates the loss. On the left, you see Rembrandt's original masterpiece. On the right, that's a recreation by an artist named Koda Ozawa. He calls it a ghost image. It captures the memory, right? The shape of what was lost. But the soul of the original is just gone. It's replaced by an echo.
With the art gone, the biggest investigation in art crime history kicked off. The FBI was called in immediately, and for the next 3 decades, they would basically chase ghosts through the entire criminal underworld.
Right from the very beginning, investigators knew this wasn't some random job. The way they got in just screamed organized crime. The working theory has pretty much always been that this was the work of a professional crew with some deep ties to the mob.
The investigation pointed to a whole cast of characters straight out of a mob movie. You've got the Merlino crew, a mob outfit with known art thieves. You have Robert the Cook Gentile, a Connecticut gangster who, right up until he died, was super cagey about what he knew. But the FBI's strongest lead? They believe the two guys who actually went into the museum were career criminals George Reisfelder and Louis Royce. Some people even think the art was stolen for the IRA. The big problem, though? Most of these guys are dead now, and they took their secrets with them. Then, in 2013, a bombshell. The FBI holds this big press conference. They announced they are confident they know who the thieves were. They said they'd even tracked the art from Boston to Connecticut, then to Philly, where someone tried to sell it in the early 2000s. And for a minute, it seemed like the case was finally cracked.
But there was this one crucial detail that was kind of buried in all the headlines. The two men the FBI said were the thieves, they were already dead. They had died just a few years after the heist. And with them, the trail just went completely cold. It's the main reason people think the art never showed up again. The only people who knew for sure where it was hidden were gone.
Which brings us right back to where we started, the museum today and the powerful, haunting legacy of this completely unsolved crime.
You see, when the museum's founder, Isabella Stewart Gardner,
passed away in 1924, she left a very, very specific will. She stated that her collection and the exact way it was arranged could never, ever be changed. Nothing could be added, sold, or even moved an inch.
And that is why those empty frames are still hanging there today. It's a deliberate choice, and a really powerful one. They act as this constant memorial to what was taken, but they're also a permanent symbol of hope that one day the art will come back to its rightful home.
And to make that happen, the museum is offering a $10 million reward for any information that leads directly to the safe return of all 13 pieces. That is the largest private reward ever offered for anything.
But it all leaves us with one final, haunting question. With the main suspects gone, the trail stone cold for decades, and the art just swallowed up by the criminal underworld, is there really any hope left? Or will these frames just remain empty forever, a permanent scar on the face of art history?